Welcome to the T9B English channel. Before we start, I want to ask you a simple question. Do you understand English, but feel nervous when you try to speak? Maybe you listen to English videos. Maybe you read English sentences. Maybe you understand many words. But when you want to speak, your mind becomes empty. This happens to millions of English learners around the world, and the reason is simple. Most people try to learn English with difficult grammar and complicated books, but the human brain learns language in a different way. The brain loves stories. When you listen to simple stories again and again, your brain slowly learns the rhythm of English. You understand sentences faster, you remember vocabulary naturally, and speaking becomes easier. So today, we will practice English listening with a simple story. The words are easy. The sentences are clear. The story is calm and natural. Just relax, listen carefully, and enjoy the story. Okay, let's start. There was a boy named Armand. Armand lived in a small town near a river. His house was simple. It had 2 small rooms and a small kitchen. In front of the house, there was a mango tree. Under the tree, there was a wooden bench. Armand liked to sit there in the evening. Armand was 19 years old. He was a college student. But Armand had a problem. He understood English, but he could not speak it well. When he watched English videos, he understood many sentences. When he read English articles, he understood most of the words. But when someone asked him to speak English, he felt nervous. His mind became empty. One day, Armand was sitting under the mango tree. The sun was going down. The sky was orange. Armand was watching people walk on the road. Some people were talking. Some people were laughing. Armand thought about his future. He wanted a good job. He wanted to travel. He wanted to meet people from different countries. But he knew something. For all these things, he needed English. And not just understanding English, he needed to speak English. That night, Armand sat in his room. He opened his laptop. He searched on the internet how to speak English confidently. Many videos appeared. Some videos said, learn 1,000 words. Some videos said, study grammar every day. Some videos said, practice speaking with a partner. Armand felt confused. There were too many methods. He did not know which one was correct. Then he saw one simple video. The title said, Improve English by Listening to Simple Stories. Armand clicked the video. The speaker talked slowly. The sentences were simple. The story was easy to follow. Armand listened carefully. For the first time, learning English felt relaxing. The next day, Armand listened again. He listened while drinking tea. He listened while walking. He listened before sleeping. Slowly, something started to change. At first, he only listened. Then he started repeating sentences. Small sentences. Simple sentences. My name is Armand. I live in a small town. I want to improve my English. His voice was quiet, but he continued. Day after day, Armand followed the same routine. Morning, listen to a short English story. Afternoon, repeat simple sentences. Night, listen again before sleeping. After 2 weeks, Armand noticed something interesting. He started thinking in English. Not full sentences, but small ideas. For example, when he saw the rain, he thought, it is raining. When he saw a dog on the street, he thought, the dog is running. These small thoughts were important. They were building a new habit in his brain. One afternoon, Armand went to a small coffee shop. He ordered tea. The man at the counter was a foreign traveler. The traveler smiled and said, "Hello." Armand felt nervous, but he remembered his practice. He took a deep breath and said, "Hello." The traveler asked, "How are you?" Armand paused for 1 second. Then he answered, "I am good, thank you." It was a very small conversation, but for Armand, it was a big moment because he spoke English with a real person. When Armand walked home that evening, he felt proud, not because his English was perfect, but because he tried, and trying is the first step to confidence. That night, Armand sat under the mango tree again. The air was cool. The stars were bright. He thought about his journey. He understood something important. Learning English was not about being perfect. It was about practicing every day. Small practice, big change. Armand smiled and said quietly, "I will continue." And that is exactly what he did. Every day, little by little, step by step. His story was just beginning. Welcome back. Take a deep breath and relax. Continue listening carefully. Remember, the goal is not to understand every single word. The goal is to train your ears and your brain. Simple listening every day can slowly change your English. Now we continue the story of Armand. Armand walked home slowly after his small conversation at the coffee shop. The road was quiet. The street lights were turning on. A soft wind moved the leaves of the trees. Armand felt something new inside his chest. It was not excitement. It was not fear. It was something calm. It was confidence, but a very small confidence. When he reached his house, his mother was in the kitchen preparing dinner. She asked him, "How was your day?" Armand smiled and said, "It was good." He wanted to tell her about the small English conversation, but he kept it inside his heart. Sometimes small victories feel special when they stay private. After dinner, Armand went to his room. He opened his notebook. Inside the notebook, he wrote 3 sentences in English every day. Today he wrote, "Today I spoke English with a traveler. I was nervous, but I tried. I want to continue practicing." Writing these sentences made him feel stronger. It was proof that he was moving forward. The next morning, Armand woke up earlier than usual. The sun was just starting to rise. The sky was light blue and soft orange. Birds were singing outside his window. Armand made a cup of tea and sat near the window with his phone. He played another simple English story. The voice in the story spoke slowly and clearly. Armand listened carefully. Sometimes he paused the audio and repeated the sentences. Sometimes he just listened quietly. Listening felt easier now. Before, English sounded like a fast river. Now it sounded more like a slow stream. Later that day, Armand went to college. During the break, he sat with his friend Rafi. Rafi noticed something different. "You look happy today," he said. Armand laughed a little and said, "Maybe." Rafi asked, "Did something good happen?" Armand thought for a moment and then told him about the traveler at the coffee shop. Rafi was surprised. "You spoke English with a foreign traveler?" Armand nodded. Rafi smiled and said, "That is great. I wish I could do that." Armand answered honestly, "You can. Just practice every day." That afternoon, Armand decided to challenge himself. Instead of only listening, he wanted to speak more. He walked to the same coffee shop again. The shop was busy. People were talking and laughing. Armand ordered tea and sat at a table near the window. He listened to people around him. Some spoke his language, some spoke English. At first, he just listened. Listening to real conversations helped him notice the rhythm of English. People did not speak like textbooks. They spoke naturally, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. After a few minutes, the same traveler from yesterday entered the shop. The traveler recognized Armand and waved. Armand felt nervous again, but also excited.
The traveler walked to his table and said, "Hello again." Armand smiled and replied, "Hello." The traveler asked, "May I sit here?" Armand nodded. They began to talk. The traveler spoke slowly when he saw that Armand was learning. Armand answered with simple sentences. Sometimes he stopped to think, sometimes he made mistakes, but the traveler was patient. They talked about the town, about the river, about the food. The conversation lasted almost 10 minutes. For Armand, it felt like a big step forward. When Armand returned home that evening, the world looked a little different. The trees looked brighter. The road looked more alive. Confidence can change how we see the world. He realized that speaking English was not a wall anymore. It was a door, and he had just opened it a little. Days passed. Armand continued his routine. Morning listening, afternoon speaking practice, evening reflection. Slowly, his vocabulary grew greatly. He learned words like journey, courage, opportunity, patience. Each new word felt like a tool he could use. One evening, he listened to a story about a young man who traveled to another country to study. The story inspired him. Armand imagined himself traveling one day. Maybe he could study abroad. Maybe he could work in another country. These dreams did not feel impossible anymore. One weekend, Armand visited the local library. It was a quiet place with tall shelves full of books. He found a small section for English learners. The books were simple, short sentences, clear stories. Armand borrowed one book and took it home. That night, he read the first chapter aloud. At first, he felt strange speaking to an empty room, but he remembered something important. Practice is not about comfort. Practice is about growth. As weeks turned into months, Armand's listening ability improved greatly. When he watched English videos online, he understood more than before. When he listened to stories, he could follow the entire plot. Sometimes he even predicted the next sentence before the speaker said it. This was a sign that his brain was adapting to the language. One afternoon, his college announced the cultural event. Students from different countries would visit and share their traditions. Many of the visitors would speak English. Armand felt nervous again, but this time it was a positive nervousness. It felt like an opportunity. On the day of the event, the campus was full of energy. Music played from speakers, colorful decorations hung from the trees. Students walked around, talking and laughing. Armand saw a group of international students near the garden. They were discussing their travels. Armand stood nearby and listened. He understood most of their conversation. After a few minutes, he gathered courage and joined them. "Hello," he said. The group smiled and greeted him. One of them asked, "Are you a student here?" Armand replied, "Yes, I study here." The conversation continued. They talked about the town, about food, about college life. Armand did not speak perfectly, but he communicated clearly. That was enough. That night, Armand wrote again in his notebook. "Today, I spoke English with many people. I am not perfect, but I am improving." He realized that improvement doesn't come from one big moment. It comes from hundreds of small moments. Each conversation, each story, each repeated sentence builds a stronger foundation. Armand also started helping others. His friend Rafi asked him to share his method. He explained, "Listen to simple stories every day, repeat sentences, speak whenever possible, and never fear mistakes." Rafi started following the same routine. Soon they practiced together. Sometimes they walked by the river and spoke English about simple things, the sky, the weather, their plans for the future. One evening, Armand sat again under the mango tree in front of his house. The same bench was there, the same quiet evening air surrounded him. But he was not the same person. Months earlier, he sat there worrying about his future. Now he sat there thinking about possibilities. English was no longer a problem. It was becoming a tool. He looked up at the stars and remembered his first small conversation at the coffee shop. That moment started a chain of progress. Sometimes big journeys begin with tiny steps. Armand smiled and whispered to himself, keep going. He knew that learning never ends. There will always be more words to learn, more stories to hear, more people to meet. But he also knew that he had already crossed the hardest part, the beginning. And tomorrow morning he would wake up again, make a cup of tea, play another English story, and continue the journey. The story is not finished yet. The next part will show how Armand uses his English in bigger situations and discovers new opportunities in life.